Hello class and welcome back. Today's lesson is on financing capital projects for a school district. After today's lesson, we'd like you as the learner to be able to do the following. We'd like you to be able to provide examples of capital projects that a school may have. We'd like you to be able to explain the difference between financing a capital project with referendum funds and non-referendum funds. We'd like you to be able to describe the legal requirements needed to hold a school referendum, to be able to perform an interest calculation and produce a debt schedule based on an annually compounding interest rate, and recite how a school district secures funding for its capital project. Well, school districts class, they issue debt for the capital projects, and some examples of capital projects are, for example, a new building project, and you can see the picture there of an architectural drawing of a new building. Also to renovate existing buildings and existing structures, and also for green space developments and renovations such as improving their athletic spaces and improving their playgrounds. And how do schools raise funds for capital projects? Well, really they do this through issuing debt, and they can do this in a couple of ways. First, they can issue debt through non-referendum debt service, and that simply is schools have the authority to borrow up to $1 million without asking the taxpayer for its approval. They also can go to the taxpayer through referendum, and they can ask for the right to borrow for a large capital project. And we call this issuing debt, which means basically they're going to borrow money and they'll have a debt service schedule or a debt on their record. For our example today in part 1, we're going to be talking about non-referendum debt financing. And so let's just talk about the requirements needed to secure funding without referendum. Well, it's a pretty simple process, really. The legal requirement is simply the Board of Education can take action on borrowing up to $1 million. There's needed a 51% of the Board of Education needs to vote in favor of. So for example, our board has 7 members and 4 need to vote yes. And per Wisconsin State Records Retention Schedule, we need to keep this as a permanent record. And school districts really have the option to choose their lending institution. Many will choose the state trust fund, some will choose a bank loan, but really at the end of the day we need to probably be thinking about fiscal responsibility. So a low interest, safe lending institution should be chosen, and most school districts will choose between 5 and 20 years on a payback schedule. For these smaller loans, most are going to pay back between 5 and 10 years. So let's just use this example of this project with this turf field, this track improvement. And this is a project that happened at the Happy Valley School District. And this was for Awesomeness High School. And you can see by looking at the track and the football field, soccer field on the top picture, it's not so awesome, and everybody in Happy Valley is really not very happy. So they have this project and they engaged an architect, and as you can see by the picture below, they're going to be really happy when they get their brand new turf field. It's going to have their logos on it, the Awesomeness Cougars, and it's going to be wonderful, and all the kids at Awesomeness High School are going to be happy again. Well, it's such a great community that this $2 million project, they found donations of $1.5 million, but they need to borrow $500,000 to complete the project, engage all of the individuals, companies, contractors to get this project taken care of. So they went to the state trust fund. They asked the folks at the state trust fund to borrow $500,000, and they were approved for $500,000. And the term of this loan is for 10 years. They were able to secure a very wonderful low interest rate of 2.75%, compounding annually. The loan origination date is September 2nd of 2020, and their first payment is going to be due on March 15th of 2022. So they got the loan payback schedule, this project is underway, and right away the business manager, who's pretty awesome, for the Happy Valley School District, looked at the first year payment As you can see, he counted out there's 9 payments. It's a 10-year loan, but there's 9 payments. Well, he looked at this interest payment, and you can see it circled $21,058.22, and that just didn't make a lot of sense. So he dug in, he used his knowledge that he got from his education at Edgewood College, and so he thought back, he said, well, this loan is going to start on September 2nd of 2020, but our first payment is due on March 15th of 2022. Well, that seems like a long period of time. So he counted the days and he found that it's 559 days. Lo and behold, that's more than 1 year. So he had to equate that to years. So he divided 559 days by 365 days, and he came up with 1.531507 years. More than a year and a half worth of interest being accrued in this period. Well, he knows that his original loan for $500,000, if he multiplied that times the interest rate of 2.75%, he knows that he'd be paying the state trust fund loan $13,750. However, he needed to calculate this by years, and so he did. And as you can see, multiplying $13,750, the annual amount on a $500,000 debt, times 1.531507, and he came up with $21,058.22. And yep, he matched the interest for year one. He was able to prove out to the finance committee how this schedule works, and he was a hero in Happy Valley School District. Well, he needed to continue on and verify all of the interest because he's a really good business manager and he loves finance. So what he did was he verified all of the interest, and he saw that in 2024 that didn't look right. $11,164.16 just seemed a little bit high. Well, he remembered, so in his calculations he found that in 2024, if it had 365 days and it had a balance of $404,860.16, when he ran the calculation, he should have found $11,133.65 in interest. Well, that wasn't correct. So he ran out his he looked at the internet and he found that, lo and behold, 2024 is leap year. There's 366 days in 2024. So he ran the same calculations. He found that there are 1.002740 years in 2024. He's using years in his terminology. So when he ran the calculation, the same one as he did for 2022, he came up with $11,164.16. You can see this particular schedule, they're using the number of days to calculate their interest. So he reviewed the rest of the schedule, and sure enough, 2028, another leap year, he ran the same schedule and verified the interest and was able to show his finance committee how this payback schedule worked, why this interest looks the way it does, and he verified that this total loan, once we add together the principal and the interest, is $579,409.02. And this is the way it works for this particular payback schedule. But we need to figure out, well, how does the school district actually get money for paying back this annual debt that they have? Well, schools have the ability to actually levy for their debt service. They can tax the community annually for their loans. That's how schools get their money, is they get a combination of taxation dollars and from state aid and federal grants. But the two big parts are tax dollars and state aid. A quick review, everybody, of the revenue limit worksheet, and we're not going to talk too much about this because we covered this in our preceding lesson on the general fund. But I just want to point to your attention the bottom right-hand corner, which shows where our taxation is. This on the revenue limit worksheet, one of the most important worksheets that a school business manager has at his fingertips. Let's just expand that a little bit. These are lines 13, 14, 15, and 16. And I just want to point out that right on 14B, line 14B, we are going to put in $64,378.38, and that's going to cover our payment each year our payments, so we'll do this every year on line 14B, we'll put in our non-referendum debt of $64,370.38. So this was actually carried out 2 decimal points, so it's farther than what we saw on our debt schedule. That's how we will raise our capital every year. And in ensuing lessons, we're going to be talking more about the other lines on 14 and 15. So what did we learn? Well, we learned what a capital project is. We learned why schools have them and the types of projects that a school may have. We also learned in part 1 how a school can finance or fund a capital project. We learned that schools have the ability to go and get a loan for up to $1 million without going to the taxpayer and asking permission. The board can simply, with a majority vote, can approve a school business office going out and getting a capital project loan. We also know, and this is just by logic, that a school should choose a lending institution that will provide a safe, low interest rate for borrowing. That's just fiscal responsibility by the business manager. And we also know that paying back the annual payment, we will tax the community for this. I hope you've learned a lot in the first part of our capital projects financing lesson, this part on non-referendum debt service, and I look forward to talking to you in part 2 where we talk about referendum debt service financing. Take care.